It's sort of a tradition here at the Auto Expo where Tata Motors Pavilion is usually the biggest. It's also usually full of very interesting forward-looking concepts and ideas. No different in 2025. Let's talk about one of those and maybe some of the others too with Martin Uhlarik. It's
Hello.
great to see you.
Good to see you again.
And nice to have you back in Delhi for the Expo.
Always good.
Let's start with this, of course, the most obvious thing because it is the showstopper for you. Quick question, first up, what is the idea or what was the plan when you sat down with a piece of paper for this one?
Yeah, we introduced Avinia as an idea 2 years ago with our first concept, and that product we're now working on in production, and give it a couple of months, a year, and you'll see that on the road. This is now the second model that will come under the Avinia brand. So that first product, as you remember, was a sort of sportback, quite low, low slung, quite dynamic vehicle. This is more traditional SUV, proportions. It's a pure EV. It doesn't have an ICE equivalent, and it picks up all of the DNA that we introduced with the Avinia concept. So in many ways, this second Avinia concept, which we call Avinia X, emphasizing that it's a crossover SUV. It's supposed to be powerful, high tech, and at the same time elegant. A lot of our inspiration with the original Avinia was a sailboat. This is more like a power boat. So it has a very blunt, powerful front end. And at the same time, all of the lines very minimalistically taper away. There's a lot of plan view. And the rear of the car, you'll see some sketches in the press kit, but it was inspired by a Riva boat, the back end. So it's super simple, very iconic, very elegant, but at the same time, like I said, it has to communicate SUV, power, capability, and then of course at the same time premiumness, which is echoed by the detailing, the quality, the fit and finish, and of course then the interior, which will be first class.
I was going to ask you about the whole boat tail thing because that's the first thing I got when I saw it.
That's right.
And it's I'm glad I was in the right sort of direction or area. The fact that you're saying that this is about powerful performance, this is about being sort of a crossover interpretation. Dual motor setup, do we sort of assume that that's the case?
That's right. That's right. The word that I would say if I thought about this car is it has to be effortless. But how do you make an SUV effortless? Because it's quite a large mass. Yeah. So it's a kind of contradiction, but I think the designers did a terrific job. I mean, when we were proposing it, we did a lot of different proposals internally. We reviewed them with management. And in the end, this was the one that was picked because of the drama. That, like you said, that boat tail rear end, very iconic, really communicating the sort of brand values. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise roominess, boot space. These are people, the customer who will buy this vehicle will be very demanding in terms of performance, not just dynamic performance, but performance in terms of interior space, ergonomics, comfort, and the same thing with the boot space. So to be honest, to counter the boat tail effect, we actually made the overhang longer. And to be honest, I actually think it gave it an even more elegant silhouette.
But could that carry over to production? That was going to be the next question. The overhang is very sort of pronounced.
Yes, it is. But you've seen now with the Sierra, which we have on our other stage, it's more or less exactly like we showed 2 years ago as a so-called concept, other than the fact that this has the ICE grille and the one we showed 2 years ago is the EV grille. The production version of this, I usually say, it'll be 85%. It'll be exactly like this. So to be honest, it'll probably be the last time we show a concept car, because from now on, our concepts will be the production car.
And well, you've had that track record where your concepts and production cars.
I think Tata Motors has been, the design team at Tata Motors has been getting better and better and better. But there was still a little bit of a, gap. But now I think they're getting very good.
In terms of, I agree. In terms of the direction that you're going with a vehicle like this, why call it Avinia? Like you could have just called it something else. Why is it important for it to be a part of that family, as it were?
Well, we want to build up a brand, and we see this sort of opportunity space-wise above Tata Motors, and you see the market in India, in terms of the sophistication, purchasing power, the growth of the middle class, and aspiration. So there's definitely a space there for a brand like this. And then, of course, as a group, there's a space between Tata Motors and Land Rover. and it's almost like a natural fit to build a portfolio of cars. We started with one concept, but it's slowly emerging and developing into a portfolio of cars, which we're now working on. It's a whole portfolio of various sizes and all pure EVs.
Well, you answered the question, because that was what I was going to say, that, does it become Avinya something rather than Tata Motors Avinya?
Yes,
or Tata
that's right.
Avinya?
We were debating. We have the name of each model now, in terms of the strategy.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, we'll roll that out when we launch the first production car. When we have that as an event, that'll be Avinya, whatever the name is, and this will obviously pick up the second name, as we roll out the portfolio. But yeah, Avinya is now the umbrella brand.
The platform for these vehicles is common.
Yes.
And does that mean that they're all large vehicles, or could it be flexible enough to have a fairly compact size as well?
There is a smaller one in the portfolio, but the rest of the portfolio all shares the same platform. Okay. That one is the sort of odd one out, but there's also a space for a mass market Avinya. But it has to meet all of the aspirations. So first you build
different platform.
First you build the brand, and then you actually monetize the brand.
Well, yes, of course you have to. At some point you should, right? The Sierra, you referred to it just now.
Yes.
Love the color.
You know where the color comes from? I mean, the design is very graphical. It's quite minimalistic. And, the DLO, as we call it, the window graphics, and the B-pillar is, in fact, the signature of what makes the Sierra Sierra, the wraparound so-called window graphic, and then the B-pillar. And so we said we need a bold color. And everything on the stage is quite hues of blue and gray. So we said first we need something to stand out, and that color is developed for production. So we will launch.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'll be one of the colors, the core colors for the portfolio. But it was inspired by the Sony Sports Walkman. That was an design icon of the 90s. But also the Sports Walkman was a sort of durable adventure, high-tech product. Again, 90s, Gen X, and we thought it was a perfect avatar for the Sierra.
That's a really nice
That's the inspiration
backstory.
point.
I'm very glad you told me that. The whole glass canopy thing, everybody's asking the question, especially with the older car there.
Yes.
We have crash regulations and safety regulations that are now vastly different. But how important was it to try and get an essence of that?
Oh yeah, no, I mean we maximized the window graphics on the side, and obviously the panorama roof is going to be huge, but you do need a cant rail, structure. Safety is one of our strongest pillars. There's no way we can compromise on safety. But having sat in the car, the production car, I mean the outdoor experience, the Sierra can't be claustrophobic. It's a very upright product. And the key is whether you're in the front row or the second row, you have to have this feeling like you're almost outdoors. So that daylight is a big part of the overall Sierra experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can't wait to get into one and drive it. One last thing about what we saw happen in the last year, where Punch, Nexon, completely new identities, very modern, very digital. How are you sort of gauging the response to that, and what's going to be the next step there in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good start, almost like a foundation. If you think about where the company was a couple of years ago in terms of sales, and then post-pandemic, our sales have rocketed up.
Oh yes.
And in many ways, that was a foundation. So from a design point of view, they all look quite similar. If you think about Harrier, Safari, Nexon, Curve, they were all designed at the same time, some during the pandemic, some just post-pandemic, but many of them are facelifts. So they have a kind of a homogeny. Now, as we get more confident, as our sales have accelerated, you'll see more differentiation from a design point of view. The products will become unique. In many ways, the brands tell the models tell the story of the brand. So it's important that each one tells its own story. That's really where we're going to be heading.
But the one thing I will say is that the three cars you mentioned, the first word that probably came to most consumers' minds was modern.
Yes.
Is it important to bring that to the Tiago or the Tigor as well?
Oh, absolutely.
And how would you do that?
You'll see.
It was worth a shot,
no,
right?
I mean, no. To be honest, we've pretty much locked that in now.
I'm sure.
In the studio. And again, the products have to communicate. I always describe myself as a modernist, as a designer. So it has to be, pure, functional, nothing frivolous, nothing so-called fashionable, timeless, good design based on proportions, functionality, And the beauty will come from the simplicity of that. But at the same time, I don't want the products to be anonymous. They have to have character and emotion. So that's the balancing act. And look at the Sierra. It's fairly horizontal. Most of the lines are pretty, geometric, very minimalistic. But I think it has a lot of character.
I agree with you, and I also think it's nice when you also become fashionable, right? It's a good byproduct.
That's right.
sometimes.
That's right.
No, I can't wait to see what you have next.
Cool.
This is looking awesome. Thank you so much for the time.
All right. Thanks.
And congrats to the whole team.
Thank you. Always good to talk to you.
Likewise.